No, wait a minute, give me a second, because
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for October 13, 2016. We'll begin with the special order calendar. Decision items. Item number 1, 16-12BZ, 184 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, this one, we still have ongoing air quality issues to just consider, and so I think it's best to take this off calendar.
Yeah, I'll speak with council after, just to get an update.
Continued hearing items. Item number 2, 472-37BZ, 2765 Cropsey Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, they submitted a revised statement of facts, including an argument that the statutory lapse period tolled as a result of the owner versus Exxon litigation that commenced in 2008 and was decided in 2012, and then another decision in 2013. This application was filed initially in October of 2014, 3 years after the variance lapsed by operation of law, and 1 year after the final court decision on leave to amend. Since a use variance doesn't create a non-conforming use, the discontinuance provision of Section 52, zoning resolution Section 52-61 does not apply, even though that's what they argued and the applicant argued in the statement of facts. However, for variances that are subject to a term of years, the rules require that where an application for renewal of the term is filed more than 2 and less than 10 years after the lapse, as was this one, an application must be made to the board to waive rule section 1-07.3, which waiver request requires that the applicant demonstrate that the use has been continuous since the expiration of the term, and substantial prejudice would result without such a waiver. The applicant argues that the landlord-tenant litigation should somehow toll that term. In the first place, this variance was initially granted and the substantial construction completed prior to 1961, hence Section 72-23, which provides for tolling in the event of a challenge to the BSA grant, also doesn't apply here. The variance term is not subject to tolling. And in the second place, the dispute was contractual and not the result of a challenge to the variance or to the use of the site as a gas station. Furthermore, the litigation materials that were submitted with the application showed that the owner was aware of the risks in not applying to the BSA to extend the term of the variance, and also was aware that there was a risk in not reopening the station itself during the period of litigation. According to the district court decision, counsel for the owner argued that Exxon's removal of the tanks would risk loss of the variance if, quote, a gas station was not operated at the premises for a continuous period of 2 years, and that Exxon, quote, could lose its certificate of occupancy. The papers also make reference to owner's failure to apply to renew its certificate of occupancy, and the owner claims that the variance and the C of O have lapsed because the use was not continuous for 2 years. The court states that although the variance may have lapsed, this was due to the owner's own failure to seek renewal. So I would say that this application was made with eyes very wide open with respect to the potential outcome. In terms of the question about serious loss, if this variance were not renewed, Exxon remediated the site, and DEC closed the spill by December of 2008. So for the last 8 years, the site sat vacant. And although there may have been an argument that the use was discontinued between Exxon's 2004 vacancy and the 2008 spill closure as a result of governmental direction, nothing prevented the owner from reinstalling the gas station from 2009 to 2011 while the variance was still valid. In addition, no serious loss would result if the board refuses to grant this extension, as Exxon reimbursed the applicant for the cost to build new on the site, something like $400,000. So today, when we look at the site, we see a clean site with respect to contamination, overgrown by weeds and inoperative for 13 years. It's surrounded by residential uses, not commercial uses. The neighborhood has become accustomed to no commercial use at this site, and so I think conditions have changed and the extension of term is inappropriate. Anybody want to add to that or have a different view?
I totally agree with everything you've said.
I agree, also agree. Item number 3, 52864BZ, 24002 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Ask to adjourn this.
Item number 4, 125580BZ, 3533 31st Street, Queens.
Also to adjourn this one.
Item number 5, 30-00BZ, 465 West 165th Street, and 458 West 166th Street, Manhattan.
Okay. They discussed the fact that the parking lot extends past, in their statement, their submission, extends past the property lines and stated that this would be corrected by removing the old fencing and installing new fencing along the property lines and relocating parking spaces. They also stated that the attendance booth would be removed and a new one constructed on the property and so would the electric panel and meters be relocated. They stated that the lot is at 100% capacity on weekdays, but they provided no backup for this. I'd like to see backup because they only accounted for 25 monthly users for 71 spaces. The drawings submitted that were just submitted yesterday added a note that says that the attendance booth will be insulated, heated, and have air conditioning. We had asked at the last hearing that all parking spaces and drive widths be dimensioned on the plans, and they weren't, so they need to be. And since this issue is also about whether the lot is extended past the property lines, we need to see the dimensions on the site plan that match the survey. They should also, as we requested, show the reservoir area on the main plan, not on that separate plan, because the main plan is what travels to the Department of Buildings. And yesterday's submission also included a photograph of the corrected rate board showing 71 spaces. That submission also included photographs of the interior of the lot, which among other things show that concrete block wall owned by I don't know who and I don't know on whose property, but in need of support or removal and replacement. They provided a lighting plan showing that the lighting doesn't comply with the requirements that there not be spill onto adjacent properties, and so they need to be adjusted or replaced. And I just want to say before I get to this last one that all of this work about replacement and changes and so on needs to be done before we vote, because we don't have any way of following up after the vote. With respect to the portable toilet that they show on the drawing, it's located next to residential properties. They said that they had a conversation with somebody at OSHA about being allowed to use portable toilets for this kind of use, but I don't have any idea what that conversation was about. I mean, sure, you can use a portable toilet for a little while, but it's not a permanent solution. It's also not a temporary structure, because both the attendant booth and the toilet become permanent structures as soon as they're more than 90 days on the site, because this is not related to a construction project. So I would like to have them provide either some kind of sign-off from the Department of Buildings and the Department of Health that a porta-sand can be the permanent solution for a person who works on site. And so that should include code citations as well, not a phone call to somebody and then we don't have any documentation about who that is, what that is. Anybody else?
I agree about the porta potty. I at least wanted to see some OSHA standard that, described what they were talking about. But yes, they should give us some code reference that allows that for a permanent solution. And I also think they were supposed to restripe, or said that they're going to restripe, and I didn't see any, they didn't allude to that in this last submission. So I wonder if that fell through the cracks.
They will need to because they're moving cars around after
Yeah.
they change the property line.
So they need to, dimension everything on the plans. That was about it for me.
I mean, one would think that a porta potty in long-term use is unsanitary, so would Department of Health weigh in on that?
Right.
Might they be the determinant? That would be my question.
Right.
In the initial application, they gave us some interior shots that showed sites with different kinds of fencing, and I don't believe in the most recent set of photos that they gave us any photos to show that that area had been improved. So I think there's more additional interior photos that are needed, like adjacent to lots 74, 75, and 76.
So they need a 360,
Yeah.
right? I think we asked for this the last time. Okay.
They're intending to do a PowerPoint presentation.
Huh? Say?
They're intending to do a PowerPoint presentation, either
Oh,
help with the view or anything.
PowerPoint, okay. Okay, anything else?
Also, the submission that we received yesterday, it wasn't clear whether some improvements were made, and if it was, it seems like the attendant booth was a new one, but...
The what?
The attendant booth
Oh.
was a new structure, but just the layout of it and in relation to what's shown on the plan and where it's located, it's not corresponding. Also, the plan shows there's a bike rack right next to the attendant booth, but there isn't enough space to maneuver a car and a bike rack and going to the attendant booth, so I'm not sure how that's also...
They labeled the photo as existing attendant booth, and they imply in the statement that there's going to be a new one.
New
I
one,
don't know
okay.
why
Okay.
there's a new one.
It
but-
does look a little bit improved than the one that we had seen on site, so that's why
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Okay.
I don't know, I guess so they have to explain that. Okay.
Move on.
Uh-huh.
New cases, item number 6, 7407BZ, 6-10 West 70th Street, Manhattan.
Okay. Let's see. So, just want to make a comment about Community Board 7, who requested additional time to review the application because, in response to finding out that there had been a notice of comments issued, and they wanted to see what the response to the applicant's response to notice of comments was, and they have their next hearing in mid-October with the full board in the beginning of November. I just want to note that it isn't usual that a community board receives the notice of comments or the response to notice of comments prior to their hearings, because they receive the applications exactly at the same time as we do for the very first time. They have 60 days to review the application, and we are beginning our review process. So it's very unlikely that a notice of comments would be ready prior to a community board full vote. So, in terms of what was submitted, I had a few questions. I'd like a section, there was a kind of little tiny schematic section, but I'd like an actual section through the setback portion of the building. So it's I guess that's the north-south section, where the building is lower. They should provide a section through that portion of the building to describe the rooftop conditions at the setback, provide a rear elevation, provide us with the information about the height above grade of the rear roof and of the dog houses. I did see that there was something in the EAS that answers a lot of those questions, but that needs to be in the main submission. With respect to the programmatic changes to the first floor rear, the approved plans show a large room that gives onto the exhibition area and connects to the small synagogue, which they label the small synagogue expansion. I'm trying to understand, what was that area intended to be used for? And what, and since it's proposed to be taken away and replaced by mechanical, what happens to whatever was supposed to go on in that space. And also I wonder, why is the mechanical equipment located on that first floor? Why can't it be located in the cellar, for example? Or, because I'm trying to understand, since you always needed mechanical, where the air intake was supposed, or an exhaust was supposed to have been located in the original version. For instance, now that they're not doing that synagogue extension, why can't the little alley between the synagogue and the new building be used to accommodate those systems instead of putting it on the roof? Or putting it on the roof of the parsonage house, which has a lower, which is outside of the required rear yard and of similar height. I don't know that the drawings seem to imply that that's a flat roof. I can't really tell from the drawings. And then with the mechanical dog houses on the setback at the rear, I'm wondering now what happens to a play area for the toddlers? Was that setback roof intended for the kids to go out and play on? And if so, then what happens to that? And then there was a statement in the statement of facts that says there's a mission-aligned school program. I'd like them to explain what that means. And in the original materials, the approved materials, the classrooms were assigned to grade levels, and the current plans don't show these assignments. So I'd like them to explain that. And just a note that on the drawings, they're using Manhattan datum, and I thought all drawings now have to be in NADD 88. So those are my questions. Anybody else?
I had the same question about the mechanical equipment, because that was not on the previous iteration. So I would really like them to explain why they need to utilize that first floor space, and especially what's going up on the roof, because they talk about there's an exhaust and I guess there's also intake. But I'd like them to speak about whether or not there's any mitigation that they need to do in terms of noise or emissions, because they are next to residential. So it wasn't clear to me exactly what that was and how big it has to be, or what it really entailed. So that was my big question. And then to maybe describe a little bit more in detail of that area that they say is removed. Is this a void? It looks like it's a roofed area, but it's not clear on the drawing exactly what that little slice is. It's right next to the mechanical space. So maybe they can elaborate. But my big question was about the new mechanical and whether that was the right place for it.
Okay. Anybody else? No?
If they could clarify this definition of lot line that they were saying is a new definition. They had something in their statement about how DOB would not allow them to have a three-dimensional lot line. So I didn't understand that. So if they could explain that, I guess they just wanted two-dimensional. I don't know what they were trying to do. So if they could provide elevations along Central Park West and East 70th Street. There was also, I didn't understand why they needed a separate objection for the caretaker's apartment when they already had an objection for changing the floor layouts. They had two objections. One is for the caretaker's apartment, and I thought that would have been included in changes to the floor layout. So, was there something specific about that? And that's about it.
Sure. Because the caretaker's apartment was shown on the originally approved set, so.
Right, but the layout of that caretaker's apartment has changed.
Okay,
So
so.
why wouldn't that just be included in the original, in the first objection? Yes.
Right.
Is it more square footage than it was before?
No, it's less.
One's a residential objection, one's a commercial objection.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Sean? Okay.
I Appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 7, 2016-4129A and 2016-4130A, Harris Lane, Staten Island.
Okay, I find this a really, really confusing application, in part because of the little bits of information that we get, so we need to talk about how to get this into something that's understandable. We were provided with copies of 2001 and 2000 easements that purport to establish the access to the subject lots 1 and 3 of block 7094 at 72 and 74 Harris Lane. Those are the subjects, right? The current tax map does not show the easements creating a right-of-way through block 7093 connecting from Crabtree Avenue to create something that could be Harris Lane. The drawing shows that Harris Lane comes from Bloomingdale and goes down to Crabtree, and there's no easements. The tax map doesn't recognize anything. Also, the way referred to in the survey and shown on the tax maps is only 12 feet and 15 feet wide, so there should be an easement shown on the tax map that parallels the way, increasing the route to 30 feet curb to curb. If there is one, we don't have it, and if those easements that they provided us copies of without showing, to show us an easement, and then there's the meets and bounds described, I'm not gonna try to figure out what the meets and bounds are. That's the job of a surveyor or the council to actually show us what the easement describes. We can't figure out the easement, so I don't know what that easement is actually for. And if it's in favor of the lots in question, I don't know how, because we don't see adequate reference to the block and lots that are in question here. The site plan provided doesn't tie back into the tax map, so we don't know what lots are adjacent or to what the easement documents refer. So there's something about a lot 172 that's referred to in the cover letter on block 7094, but I don't know where lot set 172 is, and I actually spent a lot of time looking online. I shouldn't have to do that. The entire story should be handed to us, easy to follow, everything. So the applicant needs to provide a more comprehensive description and analysis of how these lots will be legally accessed over other property owners' property that connects all the way back to the legally mapped streets. So the survey should show that the easement continues at the full required width from Bloomingdale and Crabtree to the sites, and should refer to the recorded document that creates the easement. I noted that on I think it was a survey, there's reference to a recorded document. It's the wrong document. So like when I tried to find the document, it doesn't, it doesn't get me there. So the reference to the neighbor's parking space at 82 Harris Lane is also confusing. I don't know where that site is relative to the subject site. Is this referring to the required easement area that passes over the corner of the adjacent property that we talked about before? If that's the case, a photo isn't adequate to prove to the board that the easement won't interfere with the existing home. You can't just show a picture. We also need a builder's pavement plan to show that the extension of Harris Lane will be built to Department of Transportation standards. And what about the sidewalks, the lighting? And also, where is the agreement that binds the property owners to maintain the street and not park cars in it? And how is this enforced? So I had a ton of questions about this, and yeah. Anybody else?
The only question I had was about the adjacent neighbors' parking. In the lower density growth management district, each one-family home requires 2 spaces. So is one space complying? Was it constructed before this? What was originally planned for that home?
Anybody? Nobody else? Okay.
Zoning calendar decision items, item number 8, 2815 BZ, 88 Fulton Street, Manhattan.
Okay, I think the only thing we were waiting for is plans with the note about egress through the kitchen removed, and they provided that, so.
Item number 9, 27115BZ, 1842 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
I think they responded to everything that we requested, so other than some conditions, I don't think there was anything open.
Item number 10, 27615BZ, 399 Knickerbocker Avenue, Brooklyn.
And we were just waiting for proof of mailing on this, we got that.
We got an email that the Land Use Committee, that the full board isn't going to meet until next week.
Oh, okay. But the land use, I didn't see that, and the land
That
use
was
committee
this
was
morning.
okay?
Yeah, it just came in.
Mike is not on.
They've had 60 days.
Yeah.
Or more.
Way
on
more than
this,
60
so-
days. It's a 2015 application.
Item number 11, 33013BZ, 2801 Brown Street, Brooklyn.
They're requesting an adjournment because they said they want to convert the application to a variance. I don't know if they've met with staff on this to discuss it, but they can't just assume they can convert this to a variance. They need to talk about it with staff. And you can't convert a special permit application, it's a new application. So I think what we should do is either take this off calendar or have them withdraw it, and then they submit a new application, if it's a good idea to submit a new application for a variance. I don't remember thinking that it was making such great case for findings. So before doing anything, meet with staff. And, yeah.
Item number 12, 15214BZ, 673 Driggs Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we do have a ZRD1 that determined that the area under the rooftop mechanical platform is floor area, but that the mesh fencing enclosure around the roof is not. So now the requested FAR is 2.81 as opposed to 2.65, which was the prior request. And the as-of-right in this district is 2. The plan should clarify, though, which area of the roof is floor area. And I'm not clear from when I was looking at what was submitted to DOB, I'm not sure that everything was considered. So I'm not clear whether the covered portion that's still shown is like a catwalk around the perimeter is floor area, because the ZD1 drawings did not show that area as covered. In July, when we saw this application last, there was sort of a catwalk thing, and it was metal grade, which apparently the fire department didn't like for whatever reason. I don't actually remember. And now I don't know what it is. It doesn't actually tell us what the materials are. It looks like it's more substantial, so that looks more like a roof to me than it did before. The ZD1 also didn't show the fence on top of the fence, because with that catwalk, for lack of a better word, there's a fence on sort of the interior side of it, almost like a railing for people to hold onto as they walk, but it occurs to me that that's not allowed. You have to have 2 fences, 2 railings on either side. You can't have the risk that somebody falls off the roof. So they're missing the second handrail. And I know that you can have wire mesh fence as a permitted obstruction, but can you have the wire mesh fence permitted obstruction and then something else, then the catwalk, so sort of a floor, and then a railing on top of that? Is all of that a permitted obstruction? And it doesn't need to be a permitted obstruction. They need to tell us whether they need a waiver, in which case it gets included in the waiver. But for instance, Landmarks was also not advised that there would be a railing on the outside on top of the wire mesh. So since it's so incredibly visible, they would actually need to go back every single time. I understand this is really frustrating because they've been negotiating with the fire department, but I think they need to negotiate and come to some conclusion with the fire department, and then go to landmarks and check that landmarks doesn't say, no, move the catwalk to the other side, or not sure what, I'm not really sure what that catwalk is for, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I have for FDNY in terms of, given the length of this roof, which is so, it's not much, and both of these catwalks lead to the bulkhead, and from there are stairs.
Right, a ladder.
Sorry, thank you, a ladder that brings a fire person to the roof level. So, and the distance from the two different bulkheads on two ends, it's not that far that it requires the full continuous access way, that catwalk along that entire length on Fillmore, when at the end you have to go to either one of those ladder drops to get to it. So I'm not sure what that is serving, when you can, when from the ladder you can get to the bulkhead, and then from the fire truck you can get to the bulkhead and then take the ladder down. I definitely want FDNY to weigh in on it and respond to it.
So-
I know they provided a letter, but I'm not satisfied by that response. And I think that could address a lot of the concerns that we are raising here. And this seems like something that's being designed to address, and we need to address it, but I'm wondering if there's a better solution that can address that, the fire code need.
The fire department letter, though I don't have it right up, they said, we prefer
It's
this
a
latest
prefer,
solution because we want the principal roof to be more surface area than the secondary
Yeah.
roof. So then, I didn't understand that. So then, shouldn't there just be a way to easily get onto the
third
principal
floor.
roof?
Right.
I don't know why they can't access the third floor.
No, they need to get on through the ladder truck. So part of it is, they need to have a little gate or something, so
Right.
they can access the main roof
That's-
directly
right,
from
exactly.
the outside.
Right.
Right?
Why is that not possible?
Yeah, and so that seems to me then, and then, yeah, you need a ladder to get onto bulkheads, like they always have ladders to get onto bulkheads. That's the part I'm not getting. Why isn't there just a gate,
Right.
and then they're on the roof?
I think they needed a landing perhaps, and maybe they're saying that LPC won't approve a landing or a discontinuous.
They never have on all the schools that we look at, they show the fence opens,
Right.
right? And there's a gate, and the fire department either walks around the perimeter, but eventually goes into a gate. Maybe that's the only problem, that they can't walk around the perimeter of the parapet.
But they could walk around inside.
Inside, you would think.
Right? Yeah, I don't understand why they're trying to put this on another level,
Yeah.
Right.
because it seems something we haven't really seen before.
Right. Well, we also haven't seen any applicant create this sort of split-level mechanical system where they build a platform and they put the mechanical on top of it, I guess. Maybe we have this under the hospitals?
I think so. We've probably seen it before.
Yeah. Okay, we also have the CCD1, where DOB permits both interior staircases, including the one inside a classroom. I found that very useful for other applications. We have an updated objection sheet that reflects the changes to the zoning quality amendment text. And we are still waiting for DEP review of the most recent submissions on traffic noise and the remedial action plan. At the same time, while that's going on, I don't see substantiation for statements about pedestrian traffic on Driggs and Fillmore for the type of hotel to be constructed 2 blocks away. For instance, there's just this statement that says that the hotel is busier on weekends, but might this be a business hotel? I've been to a number of the hotels in that neighborhood, and those are business hotels for like the tech industry. And also, there's nothing to substantiate the number of people dropping children off by car as opposed to walking. And to pick up on a comment from the neighbor that was submitted, and one of the neighbors submitted an opposition letter. What about there hasn't been any consideration about the duration of drop-offs to load and unload? And what about the obstruction of the bike lane? How will that be addressed? The backup data should be provided and locations of studies and relevant sites shown on the map. Also, I just want to make sure that DEP is aware that there's a play area on both roofs, the one that's lower, on the second floor, and on the roof. I know they're aware of the one on the top roof. Okay? And whether these have been separately calculated, and whether they're aware that now it's open wire mesh as opposed to the full height plexi, right? Because the original application, the entire roof was enclosed in solid material, right? So that's a sound mitigator. And now it's enclosed 42 inches, and then after that, it's wire mesh. Any other?
They submitted a new financial report that made the corrections that were required before in terms of the site value and reconciling the different square footages on the different pages.
So that's
So it's fine.
good? Okay.
Yes.
And then they submitted the information from the architect and the engineer regarding the adjacent foundations and how they don't want to underpin, and that was also helpful.
Okay.
Just to inform the board, the seeker review, the only outstanding item is the noise, and we will follow up to make sure that DEP is aware of the full scope of the proposal. The RAP has been reviewed? The RAP's been reviewed, and the language aligns in their...
So they're
Yeah,
signing
they're
off on
signing
the
off, yeah,
So
yeah, that-
DEP
yeah,
signed off
yeah.
on the RAP.
And the traffic is part of our neighborhood character finding. This doesn't meet
Right.
any thresholds, and we will ask for the backup data, just so that
Right.
it's on the record in full.
Right, okay. Okay, good.
Item number 13, 216, 15BZ, 205 West Fordham Road, Bronx.
We did get the community board resolution, which we hadn't had before, and they're opposed to the application, as is the council member and assembly member, which we noted from the last hearing. They submitted a very detailed traffic study. I want to commend the engineer for it. It was a really excellent traffic study, which, because so excellent, excellent and flawed. So what was flawed about it was that it was conducted during July and August, which is specifically not when you can conduct a traffic study when there's people who are on holiday and children not going to school, et cetera, and people just behave differently traffic-wise. So whatever the projections were for that period, they'd be worse now. As expected, based on empirical data on the part of the commissioners who drive there. Even in the lighter traveled summer months, the intersections in question are under very heavy stress. The West Fordham-Sedgwick intersection is at service level C in the morning peak and level E, the worst, in the evening peak. Westbound Fordham and southbound Sedgwick are at capacity at the evening peak. The proposed gas station and convenience store, according to the traffic study, would generate between 100 and 135 trips during these peak periods. And although, according to the study, more than half of these could be attributed to those already traveling on the route, so the pass-bys, the balance will be attracted to the site for the services provided. But from my perspective, in any event, the turns to and out of the site, by pass-bys or otherwise, will slow traffic down further, particularly in light of prohibitions against left turns, because you're going to be driving around the block, and will cause traffic buildup on Sedgwick as cars traveling westbound are forced to wait for incoming and outgoing cars that interrupt the flow to Fordham Road. The traffic study seems not to be able to quantify that type of an impact, suggesting that many curb cuts will prevent buildup on the site, but not considering safety and traffic impact of the potential for 4 cars entering and 4 exiting at the same time because they're wide curb cuts, at least 7 of which could be attempting to leave or merge into the Fordham Road traffic. So it could create sort of this really crazy, rapid traffic condition where people are trying to rush in and out, and it just seems like a traffic hazard waiting to happen. I'm also concerned about the safety of pedestrians with this convenience store here, since if it proves to be the most local place to buy essentials, because there are a lot of residential units in that area, and the closest retail is further. So if you want to buy milk and there's the convenience store right there, you would go to the one that's kind of across the street, which means you need to cross Fordham Road and cross that crazy place that's going to be happening now on Sedgwick to go there. And they're saying that they only counted a few pedestrians, but that's because there's no
traction.
Yeah, exactly, no magnet. Also, for the diagram of the truck turnaround, one of them, it looked like, what kind of truck driver can actually do that turnaround? He's going to smash into the tree. So we also stated in our prior hearing that the site had to be landscaped along its perimeter, and the building, the convenience store, pulled back away from the property line to enable access to its rear and to allow for landscaping. None of this was done on the drawings, and except a little bit of landscaping was shown at one spot. Landscaping, obviously, on someone else's property doesn't count. And the fact that moving the building would affect the number of parking spaces for the convenience store and the circulation of cars for pumping gas points to the reality that this is the wrong site. The site's too small for this use, it's in the wrong location, and I just don't think it meets any of the findings.
I agree with you about the truck circulation. I took a look at that, and it seems like the only way a truck might be able to negotiate that turn is if it went into the site on the northeasternmost curb cut, which I don't think it can do because that's the turn-off lane from Sedgwick.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure if it could make that turn onto the site that sharply. But certainly, if it came into the site from the middle curb cut, I think it's too sharp a U-turn for a truck to go around the island and then come back out. So I was doubtful that that would actually work at all.
While I do think the traffic analysis was thorough, I have a lot of concerns with the way the traffic analysis was conducted, as you pointed out, one of them being the timing. The other part is that this is not a typical east-west cross-section, north-south cross-section intersection. You have this situation where there are vehicles that are coming in straight from Sedgwick and merging in with the West Fordham Road traffic, and that traffic intersection, that traffic mingling is critical, and I don't think that has been analyzed thoroughly, and how especially that gets impacted with vehicles turning left, which you're not allowed to because that's something DOT has to weigh in on, and then also vehicles exiting from that from the gas station. That's going to create a lot of conflict at that point, resulting in backup not just on Sedgwick but also on Fordham further up. So just looking at that intersection in a simplistic manner it's not helpful, and there has been a significant change in land use in this area, and the pedestrian count being done in July doesn't help because the school is not in session, nobody's around, and also there is a lot of new construction that has happened in the area, especially to the south, further down on Sedgwick, when you turn right off the site, and those need to be accounted for.
The traffic impact from
the traffic impact from those, the pedestrian impact from those need to be accounted for. For example, just down the road, I want to mention the name of the street. When Fordham Road splits, the one that continues and the other one that goes, that actually is also an approach road to the Major Deegan Expressway, and at the end of it, there is supportive housing that is under construction. So that is going to result in a fair amount of pedestrian and pedestrian traffic, and that needs to be all factored in. And I just don't think this has not responded to any of the concerns we have raised. And the total number of parking spaces that is being provided is more than what is required, so moving the building back they can still meet the required number of parking spaces. It still does not address the concerns that we have raised.
But I don't, frankly, moving them, not moving them, I don't see how you get over this traffic hurdle.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
playing around with the site isn't going to
I
improve the
agree.
traffic situation.
Yes.
I mean, I think.
That's the major.
Right.
Yeah. And especially that curb cut that's right off Sedgwick, that's an absolutely troubling one. And then the one that's further down as the Fordham Road splits into two roads, and also it's going downhill at that point. The Fordham Road, the grade is going downhill, so vehicles are picking up speed. There isn't much traffic light between Sedgwick and Fordham and until you go and meet at Major Deegan. So traffic is moving fast. So at that time, introducing conflicting movement just going to create more hazardous situation, and I don't think those have been addressed.
And it's already a hazardous situation.
Yes.
If you've ever tried to get to the Deegan, moving west, right, and then you want to make your right turn onto the Deegan, try getting across that intersection at Sedgwick without getting yourself caught.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, I think the site itself is an odd little site. It could qualify for different kinds of waivers, but this isn't the right use for this site.
too small and wrong configuration. Just wouldn't work.
Okay.
New cases, item number 1, 23715 BZ, 109 Metropolitan Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is a legalization, but fire department has signed off because this fire alarm system was installed and it is scheduled for inspection, and we have DOI. Anybody?
On the BIS site, it shows that this site has an environmental, a hazmat restriction. I just wanted to know, how do they, I know they're not the owner, but how was that handled?
Okay.
On the, in the facts and findings, page 2, I think it says that the PCE is to be 8,366 square feet, but the drawings actually say 5,830 square feet of area of the work. So maybe I missed something, but it clearly says 5,830. So if they can just rectify that, that'll be fine.
Yep. Item number 2, 2016-4124 BZ, 238 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, we didn't have DOI. I know this is Equinox, where maybe it works for all of them. We get so many of these, but I don't know. They need to add the standard notes to the drawing with respect to the fire alarm and sprinklers. We have that standard block of notes about it being connected to the central station and so on. It just says there's a fire alarm, but it doesn't have, there's a whole list of things that are always said, which I just don't have in front of me. But they need to have that. They need to, for me, they need to show egress to the exterior on the first floor plan. I couldn't figure out how you get out of here. And then they provided 3 sheets of acoustical details that need to be keyed to the plans because there's no way for us to know how they would be used. That's a common comment about these submissions. Anybody else?
Everything I think should be put into present tense. It says it will be, and it all should already be there. And even the fire department's letter says this is being reviewed as an unopened facility. Well,
Oh, it's an open facility?
Operating, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
This
It is? Are you
This is
talking about
the first one.
No, the
238
first
Bedford.
Metropolitan is legalization, but Bedford.
Bedford should be open, at least their site says they're open.
No, they said that they're having meetings or something.
Yeah,
They're-
there's a letter from
Preliminary
August that says it
meetings.
hasn't opened.
Right.
So I don't know if it opened in a
I looked on
month.
their site yesterday, and it said it's
Well, maybe
open,
it's
and you
open
can
now.
even
Okay,
ask
so
to
we
be
need to
in and out of
clarify
office.
because more than, in that case, you
Didn't
would
mean to
need.
out them, but it says it on their website.
Okay, so clarify if open. So because it'd be more than adding standard notes then to the drawings, it would be showing that the sprinkler
Right,
and
that's what I
fire
meant,
alarms
yeah,
are
that it should
installed.
be in
So,
present tense.
but we do have a letter from the attorney saying that as of August it wasn't open, but I don't know how they
Well, we're in
know that.
October now, so,
So you need, okay.
yeah, and I was there.
Well, I
passing
drove
here the
by
other
and I
day,
saw people, but I assumed that it was
what?
just the meetings.
I saw people coming and going. That's why I went online to check, but
Oh, so
Okay.
when you drove, you did
when
a
I did a drive-by.
drive-by and you saw people
And I saw
coming and
people
going
coming
from
and going.
where? Oh.
So,
From the building, and there is one banner up.
yeah, so,
But there are other uses in the building.
there are.
Yeah.
There
the
are.
buildings.
So
And they have a
then,
TCO, but they said they're just having, meetings with potential, patrons.
But I don't know.
yeah, that's true. You try to get your membership going and then you tell them it's going to open when it's going to open, but I don't know.
But
What?
on Equinox website, it says it's operational.
Okay, so they need to clarify, and if yes, then they have to prove that the alarms and sprinklers were installed.
And then for their signage, they only have like one sign with like 19 and a half square feet, but they do have one banner, and it looks like they had brackets for additional banners. So are they including the banners in their signage analysis? And similar to the other site, this site they gave us one DOB bin, but there's actually 5 bins for the whole site, and it has an E-designation, so I just, it could be, I don't know what the E-designation is for, if they could just
I
tell
thought
us
maybe
what.
those brackets were for the
rezoning.
whole building, but I don't know.
Yeah, only one banner was up, I saw
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
When it was rezoned.
It could be, yeah, maybe.
The Greenpoint rezoning.
Well, I think probably everything got an E designation
Right.
when they rezoned this.
Yeah.
Okay.
This concludes the public review session for October 13, 2016.
Thank you.
Mike's off.
That's all.